North Dakota United President Nick Archuleta joins me. And Nick, this month we've done an educator retention survey, and I guess the results aren't shocking, but yet at first look there are some startling things to dig into.
There are, Tom, and what we learned in the survey is that teachers are feeling demoralized across the state. And it doesn't make any difference if you're a Democrat or Republican, east, west, rural, city. We're seeing the same results out of each of those subgroups. So one of the things that this survey is telling us is that, as I mentioned, teachers are increasingly frustrated by workload, by the pay and benefits that they receive, and the lack of respect that they sense they're getting from the public and as well as others in the political field. So it's a very important survey, and I would encourage everybody to take time to go to our website and read it.
eduunited.org. Some of the highlights from that, Nick, I'll just read a couple of statistics. 74% of those surveyed, and I should mention there were over 1,100 respondents, which is an incredible number of people that took part in the survey. 74% believe teacher retention is a major issue for the coming school year. So we're talking just months from now. We're not talking down the road. You cited some other statistics. 53% say they're unsatisfied professionally. You mentioned being demoralized. 41% say they can see themselves retiring as an educator. That was down from 90%. So 41 to 90, and 40% say they don't feel appreciated, contrasted with 5% who said they did.
Yeah, and that's alarming, really, because the last polling that we did with the general public on how they felt about K-12 schools and K-12 education in the state showed that fully 89% of North Dakotans rated their schools as good or excellent. So I believe that the support is out there from the public. I think the public does appreciate teachers, but teachers are perfectionists. And we know they're always harder on themselves than on anything else. And this is probably not surprising, that when you see all of the things that teachers are having to deal with, the increased workload, the political conversation around teaching, and particularly CRT, all of that has kind of conspired to make teachers really question the value of what they're doing. And by God, I have to tell you, Tom, these are teachers that are working as hard as they possibly can, doing more than they've ever had to do, and they're still doing it with such a high level of professionalism. I'm just proud to represent them.
With all that you've mentioned, Nick, how difficult does it become for educators to give their students the time and attention necessary?
It becomes very difficult, although teachers are doing just that. They have no higher priority, and they're laser focused on making sure that the needs of these students that they have in their care are met. But having said that, everybody has read about this before across the state of North Dakota. We have a teacher shortage. You know, at one time, I believe that maybe it was just a recruitment and retention issue because we were graduating plenty of teachers to fill the positions that were open. But now, I think we have a full-blown teacher shortage, and I've thought that for some time. And it has been terribly exacerbated, I think, by the pandemic and by the sub-shortage. We all know substitute teachers play a very vital role in education in the state of North Dakota, and when they're not available, that means that teachers who are in the classroom have to give up their prep periods, have to give up planning times where so they can cover the classes of those teachers that are sick, either with COVID or the flu or whatever, or taking kids to their doctor's appointments. Those classes have to be covered, and it's those teachers that are working full-time right now that are doing it. And so when you give up a prep period to cover a class, that means the work that you didn't get done in your regularly contracted school day has to go home with you. And that, over the course of a few years, is what we've been talking about here, since that has been the pattern over the course of the last few years, particularly since the pandemic. That is putting some pressures on teachers in the schools, after school, and in their homes. So we have to think about what we can do to help mitigate that pressure those teachers are feeling.
And speaking of teachers, Nick, and I know you talk to a lot of them. Are you hearing stories from some across the state? And
oh yeah, I certainly am. I mean, I heard a story. Speaking of the sub issue, and teachers they love their colleagues. I mean, they work hard with them. It's their work family, and they take that very seriously. And so some teachers I know have put off medical treatment that I've talked to because they didn't want to be gone for half a day at the doctor's office and increase the burden on their colleagues. Well, that's wrong. I mean, go to those appointments. Make sure that you're taking good care of yourself. The work will get done. Make no mistake about it. But that just kind of shows you the level of professionalism that they have, that they don't want to burden their fellows. Another thing that I've heard, and this was back in October, I was up in Williston, and I was visiting with a teacher after a union meeting there, and she told me, she goes, you know, this already feels like April. And that's really saying something, because it was towards the end of October. The work is real, the burden is real. And then the strange thing about that, a couple of weeks later, I was in Fargo, and another teacher, completely unsolicited, said exactly those same words. I feel like it's April. That's how long the year had seemed. So I think really that we need to really pay attention to what these teachers are saying and these education support professionals are saying, and take that very seriously. If we do not, we do that at our own peril.
Yeah, and our kids.
Our kids, yeah.
You talked about morale. Any difference between younger educators or veteran educators, vice versa, feeling the effects more than others?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think they're all recognizing it at about the same level. Yeah. But there was a time when 90% of the teachers in North Dakota thought that once they went in the profession, assumed that they would retire from the profession at the end of a long, fruitful career. Now that went from 90% down to 41%. And then for teachers that are between ages of 30 and 39, it was even more profound. They're not planning on sticking around like other generations of teachers. And so they went from 91%, I think, down to 26%. So we have to be very mindful of that. If we end up having what we're seeing some anecdotal evidence of fewer people choosing education as a career, because of the pay, because of the extra burden of the extra work, as well as the education being involved in ideological political battles, I think we're going to be moving more, or not encouraging enough people to join our professional educators in this really very important work, this most important work. And we have to be very mindful of that.
Well, what are some things we can do? What are some solutions, Nick? I mean, you mentioned simply a big thing we can do, listen to our educators. That's huge. What are some other things that come to mind moving forward? A
couple of things come to mind, and they're free. They're not going to cost a dime. Respect teachers. Respect the jobs that they do, and education support professionals. Appreciate the fact that they're there doing this very difficult work. And I would think that it's drop them a note, appreciate them, and that doesn't cost a dime. Beyond that, we need to visit with our folks in the legislature and make sure that they're doing everything that they can do to provide enough money to make sure that these professionals are being paid a professional wage for the work that they do, the very good work that they do. And I think that after last legislative session, where they only increased that by 1%, there's some work that they can do, and it will be incredibly appreciated. And I also think it'll go a long way to lifting the profession up as one that young people will want to join. And because we need the best and we need the brightest coming into this profession if we're going to compete, not just across the state or with other states, but globally. Our kids are worth that effort. I think another thing that we can do, certainly, when it comes to helping teachers understand their importance, is to really listen to them. Care about what it is they're saying. Try to understand the art and the science there is to teaching, because it's not an easy job. And let's quit talking down the profession, especially this noble profession that they've done so well for so long and made such a positive impact on the state of North Dakota. Those teachers deserve that.
You mentioned legislators and some things that they can do. How about districts or administrators? Are there things, what can they do to help ease some of these burdens?
That's a very good question. I think what they can do is a lot like the rest of us. We can listen, okay, and really include teachers in the decision-making process. It is, after all, the teachers that are going to have to carry out any sort of educational policy. So by including teachers and including education support professionals in the decision-making process district-wide, I think the school districts do themselves a favor, because they'll have teachers buying in to the plan and executing executing the plan much more efficiently. I think something else that we should remember as a general public and school boards and administrators, we're all a team. It's school boards, it's administrators, it's teachers, it's education support professionals, and it is parents. We have to work together and keep our eye on the prize, and the prize is a rewarding educational experience for those students that sets them up for success after high school.
Of all the things, all the great things you said, I think that is probably the most important. We're in this together.
Yeah, we are. We are in this together. And let's quit being so ideological. Let's start being practical. Let's start being focused, kid-focused, and do it every day, every day, every day.